that any of us were looking forward to, and honestly did not expect that we would be here today, here on whatever day this is. I've lost track at this point in time. However, we are, like everyone, incredibly disappointed and frustrated that we find ourselves in this situation. But we also recognize that the decision that was made today was made with all the right intentions and the best thoughts in mind to protect the safety and health and well-being of our athletes, our coaches, our staff, everybody involved. And we get that. This is a situation that no one has any history or any reference points to be able to navigate through. We're all dealing with it as facts and circumstances present themselves. And we do respect that the decision today was for all those reasons, based on medical guidance and the challenges of trying to compete on 14 different campuses across 11 different states. I mean, there's lots of complication that goes into trying to make this happen. And we get that. We understand that. It doesn't lessen our disappointment, nor does it lessen our resolve to try and find a way through this. We met earlier this afternoon with our fall sports student athletes that are back on campus, which would be our football, volleyball, women's soccer athletes all together. It was, as you would expect, a somber room. Not a lot of smiles from anybody, nor were they expected. But they took the news very responsibly, very professionally, and I think probably had some inkling that things were heading in a direction as we adjusted workouts here earlier this week. So we've done that, and we've tried to give them some sense of what happens in the really near term, but still lots to learn and lots to figure out as we move forward. So with that, I'll be glad to take questions, and we can start up in the right corner here with Mike Carmen. You're on mute, Mike.
Yep, I know you've always wanted to put me on mute.
It's the best you've ever sounded, really.
That's been your goal since you got here, is to put me on mute. I guess, and whether something happened in the last week, and I understand when they announced the schedule a week ago that there was no guarantee there would be any seasons. I get that, but did something transpire from a medical standpoint? We've heard a lot about the heart condition that has maybe surfaced. Was there something like that maybe sped up this decision a little bit to arrive to where we are today?
It's a great question, Mike. And I think what sort of happened is the thinking, the evidence, the reality of the circumstance, sort of reached a critical mass over the weekend. And I think it was brought into focus as we began practice more in earnest last week, not just for football, but for volleyball and other sports. You sort of saw that reality of what we were trying to pull off. And I think that caused a relook and sort of a deeper evaluation of the realities and the practicalities of making this happen at this moment in time, given the circumstances and all the different things that go into it, the uncertainty around the virus and its health effects, the availability of testing, the inability of certain schools in certain regions potentially to gather in sufficient numbers to be able to practice effectively. Lots of things became problematic, and I think that it all sort of came together, which then resulted in a very hectic 72 or 96 hours, whatever period of time it has been, arriving finally where we are right now.
There's been a report that says 5 Big Ten athletes have experienced some sort of heart condition situation. Does Purdue have any of those?
I don't know if that report is true or not. I would tell you, and again, without speaking about medical information that I can't divulge.
Doesn't he look different?
We are not.
Maybe a haircut?
Yeah.
Overall. Your forehead.
Mike, anything else?
No, I'm good for right now. Thank you.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I was going to go. Brian Newbert, you want to go next?
Brian.
Mike, how are you?
Hollywood Squares.
Hollywood Squares. Take Jim J. Bullock for the block. I know this is kind of raw here, but can you speak to the financial implications in terms of what you're going to have to kind of do without from here on out this fall, without any guarantees the spring is, going to get you what you need or happen?
Sure. I mean, obviously, by definition, you lose all the game-related, competition-related expenses, the travel, the game event operations, all of those things clearly go away. So that begins to help plug the gap. Will be considerable, but beyond that, we are looking at lots of different things. We've already taken lots of different steps to slow down purchasing, get rid of all outside consulting agreements, you name it. All those kind of things have been done. But there is some level of expenditure that's fixed for all of us in our world. And part of that is our support of our student athletes and their scholarship and all that goes into those things. That's an expense that's not going anywhere. We have debt service. We've got people. All of those entirely variable expenses, particularly on the people side, without making and taking significant and in some cases very painful actions. All of that is further discussed and finalized as we speak here, and we'll continue to take actions as we get to a point of decision. Again, none of it is very much fun, and none of it is anything any of us ever anticipated having to deal with. But here we are, and we've got to find a way through this. At the same time, without making a pitch, we've launched, and it's not by design. It was a pure coincidence that today happened to be the same day that we have launched a development, a fundraising initiative to try to help protect our future. And it's probably the most important thing we'll ever do. As we sit here today, didn't anticipate that being the case, but as we put that together, it now becomes something that is absolutely imperative if we're going to find a way through this. We won't be able to. There aren't enough things I can do independently here, literally without dismissing our entire staff and saying, "Hey, don't come back for a year," which is obviously not feasible, right? Nor desirable, nor any of the above. So we've got to ask and rely on people to try and help us through this. And I think I'm optimistic that the response will be good. But everybody has their own challenges, and I understand that also. But we're going to do our very best to be aggressive and raise the dollars necessary to get us to a good place here on the other side of this whole issue.
Right. Perhaps you can't speak to this yet, but are there any options, any kind of mechanisms that can act as a quote-unquote bailout, whether it be a loan, whether it be help from the university, whether it be anything that can just bridge this kind of gap here?
Well, I think at the end of the day, one of those things will necessarily have to come into play to help us and bridge that gap. Is exactly that's an apt description of it. There, I think, with all that we do, there will still be some gap that will have to be covered, and that will have to be in the form of some type of a financing arrangement. I don't know what the source of that might be or will need to be at a point in time, nor do I know the terms or the duration or any of it. But as we work through it, I feel fairly certain that will be a necessity at some time. We just don't know yet what that will look like or how big it will need to be.
Right. Obviously, this is fall sports being postponed. Basketball kind of starts in fall. You have any sense yet for what this means for basketball's ability to start when it's supposed to start?
Don't yet. I mean, obviously, those conversations about sports that are 2-semester sports will be immediately forthcoming here. And by immediately, I don't know if that's tomorrow, the next day, or the next day. But we're not far off from having to deal with that and to get some clarity around what the fall will look like for those sports and then beyond. So that will be on the agenda as we continue working through this as a group of institutions in the league.
Right. I won't take up too much time here. You've got other Hollywood Squares to get to, but where did you stand on the matter here the last couple of days? Were you a postponement guy? The September 26th date. Were you all in on the potential move to the spring here? Or what was kind of your stance on the matter as it really came to a head here the last couple of days?
Sure. Well, I know that we, like many others in our league, all others in our league, have put lots of protocols, lots of mitigation strategies in place to allow us to try to work through potential circumstances. We constructed a schedule that had built in certain flexibilities to allow us to adjust to potential disruptions. And, me personally, I would have told you that I would have liked to see us give that a little bit more of a chance to see if we could get through it. Now, I also respect and understand that if the evidence and the circumstances look in such a way that is just simply not going to be feasible, that we're going to ultimately land here anyway, then so be it. Then this is in fact the best move. But I guess I would personally have preferred us to take a little bit of a more considered and slow down approach to see if we might push back and let it breathe a little bit, see if our mitigation protocols, which have worked to this point in time, obviously just practice and not as intense a practice situation as we've entered now, but they have proven to be effective to this point. And I would like to have thought that perhaps they could have continued to do so. However, I understand and appreciate the decision, and we will work through it like everyone else.
Great. So Brian, last question.
That's actually what I got. I'm good.
Okay, perfect. We'll move on. Tom Dienhart.
Hey, Mike.
Tom.
Hey, just two real quick ones. If there is a spring season, when do you think it would start and end? How many games would we play? Would it be the same schedule they just came out with last week? And number two, Mike, you think there's a chance if a spring season takes place, would there be a fall season in 2021?
I think those are all the questions that need to be answered, Tom, and none of them can be answered right now. I think there's some, there are some geographic realities about where we live in the Big Ten that make the spring, you got to define the spring in a way that you think you can actually get out there and play, and it's not a tundra. So, by that definition, it would probably have to be a March start in my mind. And then this is just my, back of the napkin here, noodling on the thing. Probably a March start. I don't know that we would have a 10-game season. Maybe it would be the 9 that we currently had on the schedule. But it could be 10. I don't, again, we just haven't got deep enough at all into that conversation. We were so focused on trying to make the fall happen that this is now the next set of conversations that present themselves. So I don't have any clarity on that. The prospect of a season, then an off season, and then another season obviously presents a set of challenges that we've got to anticipate and think about and try to understand what that might really mean. Would it in fact cause both seasons to be shortened in some way? And that's not ideal in any sense of the word, but it's certainly possible.
Thank you.
Anything else? Dakota, are you on mute? The Chris, Fox 59, CBS 4.
Hey, Mike, good to see you again. Sorry it's under these circumstances.
Yes, sir.
As my mom always tries to tell me, there's more to life than just sports. But as you think about this, some of these young folks have been so passionate. You see them on Twitter, how disappointed they are. How do you kind of console them? You said you talked to a lot of the athletes today and they were disappointed, but you kind of have to sometimes remind them that maybe Father knows best in a situation like this, don't you?
Yeah, and I tried not to be that guy and to preach at them today because nobody wanted to hear that, and I didn't want to say it, to be honest with you. What we tried to impress upon them is that, hey, we're going to stay connected. We're going to stay with you on this. We're going to support you in every possible way. Obviously, your continued participation at this moment in time is entirely your call. It's optional, but we're going to provide that opportunity. We're going to continue to, again, stay engaged. And I reminded them that, hey, while we're not preparing for competition in the fall like we all expected to, you're still Purdue student athletes. You still have you wear that every single day, and staying in line with your responsibilities and who you are and how you carry yourself all matters. And I also reminded them, hey, we're going to continue to, while we continue to work out, the testing protocol, the safety protocols, the masking, the social distancing, all of that is, staying safe is a big deal at this point in time. And we want to make sure that this is not the time for our athletes to walk away from all the things that they've been doing so effectively over these last several weeks and in some cases months. And I think, you know what, they're mature and responsible young folks, and I feel really good about how they'll ultimately respond to this. I mean, it was not a good day for them. It wasn't a message they wanted to hear, but they took it like mature young people, and I think they'll respond appropriately.
Thanks, Mike.
Who were we not able to kind of touch base with in the beginning? I think is that Nicole on there?
Yeah, sorry. It took me a couple minutes to get in.
Okay, perfect. And then Alan, is that you, I see? Yes? Okay.
It is, and I'm monitoring at this point. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, we'll just keep going through the list here. And so I'll throw it to Nicole right now.
Yeah, Mike, I guess my question is, and I'm sure you might have answered this right out of the gate, but obviously when you have coaches kind of calling out leadership and it becomes obviously contentious and it's clear that certain people wanted to delay, certain people wanted to push. Like, how does the league, like, not repair those relationships, but move forward? I mean, obviously everyone's passionate and feeling different ways, but how does the leadership in the conference kind of move forward cohesively?
Well, it's a good observation, Nicole, and one that I think was born out of frustration and emotion and the personal investment that everybody's got in what we do. I feel it. Coaches are closer to the ground, closer to where the rubber hits the road than I am. They're totally invested with their players in every way, and I think the hurt for them to have a season at this point taken away and hopefully relocated, but taken away, causes people to just, out of that emotion, maybe act out accordingly. I think what we do going forward is literally embrace each other in a more intentional way and bring everybody back into the circle. The strength of this conference for many, many years, what it was built on, has been sort of that solidarity and that sense of togetherness. We share everything in the Big Ten, and that's how we've gotten to be who we are. And I think that will restore itself quickly, but it'll take some work and some time, and all of that. Hurt feelings and raw emotions are ones that don't go away overnight. But I think ultimately we'll get it solved, and we'll be back in action as business as usual here very soon.
That's all I had. Thanks, Mike.
Sure. Thanks, Nicole.
Thanks, Nicole. Dakota, were you able to join us? I know you were on earlier. Nope. All right, so we'll go to Eric.
Eric.
Hi, Mike. Weird way to meet you the first time, but good to meet you for the first time.
Sure.
Let me ask you about Nebraska. As you know, they've come out and said we're going to look for another conference to ally with. Is that something that Purdue would look to do? And if not, do you have a problem as a member school with other schools going that route?
Well, to answer the second part of the question, I don't know, maybe it was the first part, but Purdue will not be doing that. We're not going to be looking for another home. The Big Ten is our home. That's where we're going to compete, and we'll hopefully do so in the spring at this point in time. So that is not an option for us, nor one we would entertain in any way, shape, or form. And I probably will defer any opinion on the other part of the question. I don't know that that's particularly feasible. Period. Everyone has to make decisions that they can. But I know, again, I'll reiterate what I said to Nicole. The strength of this league has been its collective strength, not its individual strength over many, many years. And I'd like to think that will be what wins the day here when it's all said and done.
And as far as the prospect of a spring season, has there been any guidance from the conference as to whether and how that might take place, or when the planning would begin for that? Any metrics for doing that? Or is that still all up in the air at the moment? It
has not yet gotten to that level, Eric. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we've been so consumed with trying to get the fall pulled together that there's only so much bandwidth anybody has to try and put things together here, that we will immediately turn the page to try and figure out if spring has got real possibilities, and we hope it does. There'll be lots of things we'll have to work through in order to make that a real possibility, and I believe that will begin before this week is over, if not as soon as tomorrow morning.
That's all I got. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. And then Phil C., were you able to join us?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
gotcha.
Sorry, we're driving on route for, well, similar story. So if it's loud, I apologize. We're just in the car and moving. How does this affect recruitment or kids that might be playing this fall if they're lucky enough, if their leagues go through, in terms of you guys? Sorry, I didn't come and call at the same time. How does that affect your recruitment or scholarships, especially heading into the spring? Of course, if it works, that's great. If it wouldn't, would that push things back or kind of make a backlog for you guys?
Well, that question of scholarship number and sort of a potential logjam is a real question, and one that we won't know any answers to for a while, Mike. If we play in the spring, it certainly has a chance to sort of work itself out in a normal rhythm. If not, there might be some issues that would have to be dealt with if we are not fortunate enough to be able to play in the spring. Certainly nobody loses a season of eligibility if you don't use a season of eligibility, you don't play. So that would, we then have to figure out how that equation works. But at this moment in time, we will continue to recruit. We'll continue to fill out our class until we have, a different set of parameters that we have to work towards. But that is not a known fact at this point in time.
Thanks.